Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Conversations with Geoff International. And like always, man, we've got a guest waiting to come out here that's going to light you up. So I always like to encourage you to make sure you are prepared. Turn off all of your distractions. Turn off everything that's going to prevent you from getting the lesson, right? Because our show, Harness the Spiritual Gifts, Unleash Your Potential, and Change the World, baby. Aha! We got some things in store for you, so you don't want to miss out on that one. So welcome to Conversations with Geoff. And our mission really is to transform your thinking, everybody knows that, into unstoppable comebacks, right? From our speakers, and unlocking your potential. Giving you some tools, though. Potential unused is just a waste, right? Giving you the tools from their experiences, their lessons learned, oh man, and empowering you with some solutions. Lord knows we need more than we can get our hands on right now in the crazy times that we're facing right in the world that we live in, let alone the conversation we have with ourselves about ourselves. I always like to ask, don't put it in the chat too when you hear this. When you looked in the mirror this morning, did you like who was looking back at you? And if not, wouldn't it be exciting to be able to take some information from this message that we're sharing with you today, plug it into your attitude, plug it into your perspective right now, and shift how you're moving and move forward with a different step, more pep in your step, right? Oh man, I don't know if y'all hear me, man, but I'm telling you, there's no greater time to be anywhere but right here, right now, Conversations with Geoff. And my name is Geoff Tyson, and I'm known as the Comeback King and host of Conversations with Geoff International. And we are excited to bring to you today a new friend of mine, a young lady that is just, you'll see. Let me just get you her bio here, because, it's, you'll just see, just an amazing person. So, all right. Anyway, our guest today is Charmaine Diallo, founder of Recall Truth, and she helps conscious men and women remove dark energy influences over their spiritual gifts so that they can step into their life calling with more ease. How many of us would like to be able to do that, right? Stop fighting herself. Her approach is based on the belief that if you don't remove the effect of unseen negative forces interrupting your personal and professional life, you'll never be able to serve others and yourself with your gifts, man. Everybody's talking about getting gifts. You're going to find out how you can get yours, right? Anyway, read the bio, Geoff. Stay focused. So since 2018, Charmaine has helped her clients to access their full range of spiritual gifts and practical potential by helping them remove supernatural, inherited, and we're going to talk about these two things, supernatural and inherited and learned energy blocks to success, and training them into their abilities so that they can help alleviate pain and suffering on this planet, man. So ladies and gentlemen, help me bring to the stage our new guest, next guest, and my dear friend, Charmaine Diallo.
Thank you, Geoff.
Hey, what's up, Charmaine? How are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and we're glad to have you here, and I hope I didn't mess up your bio. I mean, I just, I pause sometimes because there's some things in there that we really, I think the audience can really benefit from, and it's got a little different twist to it. And so, and you've been at it since 2018. And so what was life like before that, I guess,
The biggest thing that I remember, Geoff, is I could not sleep. I couldn't sleep. And everybody needs sleep.
Yeah.
I could fall asleep, but I couldn't stay asleep. I would wake up every day at 3 a.m. And, just me as an adult, I would just go back to sleep. This was going on for about 15 years before I found a solution. And it was no big deal. But then my daughter started to wake up. And at the time, she was maybe like 5 years old. She had been sleeping through the night for years. And so it was shocking because now I have to really wake up completely. What's going on with her? It's not just in the bed, drink some water, go back to sleep.
Right.
I had a 5-year-old to calm down because she would be running up and down, everywhere because she was scared. She was seeing spirits and she was hearing them. And I had no idea what to do. But I had to get some sleep. I was desperate. Yeah, it was crazy. So
Wow.
Before I got a solution, that's what my life was like. Every night, trying to keep her from waking up my husband so that we didn't have a bigger problem.
Yeah. So it didn't happen until she was about 5 years old then?
No, nothing happened until then. And it was like, I figured out if I would talk to the spirits, they wouldn't wake her up. But that meant I had to stay awake and talk to them.
Mm.
That works sometimes. Sometimes you pass out because you're exhausted. Clearly, that wasn't a result. Yeah, I mean, a solution. That was Band-Aid for sure. And it didn't always work because I would pass out.
Yeah.
As soon as I fell asleep, they'd go disturb her. I'm pointing up upstairs. They would wake her up, and then she'd be running back and forth because she's 5. She doesn't know what to do. She's seeing things. She's hearing things. She's really like out, crazy. Because whoever told her about that? Nobody.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, I'm listening to you. I'm thinking, man, well, you could have made so many different judgments around at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, and when you talk about the spirits, that people probably think you're a little crazy too.
Yeah, well, they can, but the bottom line was my child was running around and I had to get her back to sleep.
Yeah.
And the way that I was raised, you don't talk about spirits. You don't mess with that. That's none of your business. I was raised in a religious, very religious Southern Baptist home. So that's none of your business. You leave that alone. Now, at the same breath, my family would tell me certain ones had abilities. Your aunt can do this, your uncle can do that, but we don't deal with it, right? But everybody acknowledges that they have abilities. So that was when I was like, well, I got to get back to sleep.
Yeah.
So I called a psychic, which was like way outside of anything I would ever do.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have even thought of it, but my coworker at the time tested it to me. So I felt a little more comfortable because she knew the person and I knew her. So I thought, well, at least, this person's not going to maybe put a spell on me or something weird.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah. I do.
Yeah. So I talked to her. She gave me a solution. It was incomplete. It was another Band-Aid, but it worked better than trying to stay awake.
Right.
So I did that for a couple of years. I got fed up. And then I just really had to get trained in my abilities to be able to sleep, but also, get rid of that Band-Aid or just fix it completely.
Yeah. So you, and again, I'm learning about this as we're talking, and I do a little research too, and I respect where you come from it. So when we're talking about learning and talking about spirits, like you said, I grew up in the same kind of environment. You don't just you handle that over there, but don't bring it up.
Don't bring it over here. Yep.
Please don't bring it up, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So you stayed in. I know it's your daughter and that, but you stayed in that space. And what were some of the things that when you're like, oh wow, what were some of those moments?
When I realized that I could actually help people. So at first, I found out they were dead people. They were ghosts. So. I was helping them because they were lost. Literally, they just needed directions so they could get to the next realm.
Yeah.
All right. That was great, but I was volunteering. They didn't have any bodies. They didn't have jobs, So I said, I can't help these people for free. I want to get paid to do this. So I more training. And then, of course, I only worked with, people who still have their bodies, you and I, right? I worked with people like that, and I'm still helping them cross over. And then I got introduced to some other things. My husband's family is from the west coast of Africa. I got exposed to witchcraft, not on purpose, really. So I learned how to clear that away. That's a big part of a lot of ancient cultures.
Yes.
And I went there to meet my in-laws and some of his relatives and friends, and they thought, hey, she don't know anything about witchcraft. Let's put some stuff on her. Yep. So I was familiar with energy, and I was a medium that was helping, the lost souls, the dead people, but I didn't know anything about witchcraft. And that was another thing that was like,
Yeah, girl. I mean,
okay. Yeah, that was like none of your business.
No, no, no.
But it was affecting my life.
Yeah.
I needed to get some things taken care of, including like causing me to gain weight. It were things that I could not fix with traditional medicine, with, things going on with my health. And it's like, well, I'm not just going to be a sitting duck.
Right.
I'm not going to just let people put stuff on me,
That's right.
So I figured out how to clear it, and I protect my family, I protect myself.
Mm.
And now I train other people to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I used
Yeah.
to say, oh, that's other countries, that's far away. No,
Right.
it's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
You mentioned inherited. A lot of our ancestors were under attack.
Mm.
And it may have been 300, 400 years ago, but if no one cleared you, it's still there.
And so, is it the same energy that's attacking? That is it new, and what is that all about?
So that's a great question, Geoff. There's a whole spectrum of energy, right? Everything though is just energy. You and I are made of energy.
Yes.
When you're in traffic and somebody cuts you off and you're like, why can't they use a signal? It's a little bit of annoyance, but you're not, staying frustrated unless you're already frustrated, right? That's a little bit. So that's
right.
a little negative energy. Maybe someone passes away. That grief, that's a lot of negative energy.
Yeah.
Energy gains momentum if it's not dealt with. If that grieving person doesn't have a healer who understands energy, clearing their energy. Yes, you may go to someone who can talk to you about it, make you feel better about it. But if that grief that's in your body, I'm holding my stomach because a lot of grief is in our digestive area.
Yes.
If you don't clear that out, it can gain momentum. And the more it gains momentum, the more power it has.
Yeah.
And it can actually become an entity. It can become a demon. That's where they come from. There's no magical, negative place where they pop out.
Yeah.
It's our own unresolved emotions. That's where they come from. Yep.
Unresolved emotions, boy, and man, and that without even understanding this conversation, that's something to that's not dealt with anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So that you have that going on, and then you have what I'm hearing you say is historically or carrying potential demons or energy from the past.
Right.
So it kind of leads me to my next point when we were talking about before the show about that. I think I wrote it down: the invisible third person,
yes,
third party.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a minute.
Sure. So on that continuum, like let's go with grief. Let's just leave that. A lot of people have experienced grief.
Yep.
Let's say you're in a graveyard. So there's hundreds of people who've passed away. And people come there all the time. They're grieving their loved one. All that grief is there. If it gains momentum, it can become an entity again. So what does that have to do with you and me? Well, let's say you have some grief that's unresolved. Someone has passed away. You have grief about something. Someone was sick, whatever.
Yeah.
And not to belittle the grief itself, but that energy again can get stuck in the body. Now I'm pointing to the shoulder because we carry a lot of things in our shoulders. We carry things, different body parts.
Yep.
People say, I got a pain in the neck. That's breaking my back. These things that we say, it's literal. We're not trained that way. So anyway, you can actually attract an entity to you because you have a similar vibration going on. So if that entity is grief, and you're grieving, which is totally normal, but you're not getting any energetic assistance or support, you can attract an entity to you that is made of grief. It's just law of attraction. We talk about law of attraction for positive, but it also works in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
So now you've got, let's go with the grief still. You're at the funeral and you've got all the family members, brothers and sisters grieving over a parent maybe that passed away. What happens a lot of funerals, people get into arguments. People get, not just over property and things being willed to people, but just over things that are said. People are now not speaking to each other. These things do make sense, but could it have happened differently if that entity was not there? The entity is there to create chaos, confusion, upset. How many times have you been upset with somebody? You can't even really remember what made you so angry.
Yeah.
You know, you can't even pinpoint what exactly made you so frustrated.
Right.
But sometimes we're being egged on, really is the best word. You're being egged on, like, that's what they think. That's how it goes. You know, just jumping to conclusions, getting an attitude, getting frustrated, being, you know, self-righteous, whatever. These things can't even be a normal part of your personality.
Right.
But here it's being triggered because the energy is here and it's bringing up something in you that's kind of below the surface, right?
Yeah.
We all can catch an attitude. That's
Possible. Absolutely.
Something is there, it can bring it up to the surface maybe when you wouldn't want it to. So now you've got an attitude and you're really just talking about how come somebody didn't wash the dishes. It's not really something to argue about. It's just somebody go do it, you know. But
get it done. Yeah.
Right. But now it's become like an issue. And this is what I'm saying. When people are susceptible to entities, and everyone who's not protected is, they can influence you. And you can even be possessed. And I have to bring up the movie The Exorcist and the Poltergeist. If you're my contemporary or older, you remember those.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Head spinning and all that stuff. It's nothing like that. If demonic energy was that obvious, all the demons would have been cast out by now. Everybody would have gone to a priest or an exorcist or somebody. They'd be gone. They stay below the radar, wreak their havoc, and take off. Go to the next person.
And you said this before the show about the demonic presence. You can see it in people, visibly recognize the difference.
Yeah. So again, it's not like the cartoons. You're not going to see a red devil with horns, you know, popping out.
Yeah.
It's not like that. The person's eyes might change. You just notice all of a sudden they look more vacant is one word you might see, or the person's expression changes. You know, they're just talking to you and all of a sudden they get like a snarl or they start looking irritated just out of nowhere. That's when you know that person may be under the influence of an entity instead of just talking on their own volition, of their own, you know, way that they would. Yeah.
So, and thank you for kind of clearing it up. So, is it always a negative spirit, a challenging spirit, or are there joyous and caring?
Absolutely. All the healing that I do is with people's angels, and I work with people's angels completely. Those are who are actually doing the healing. I'm just kind of like a switchboard operator because we have free will. If you never say, Geoff has some grief from whatever happening, we like to clear that away. If no one ever says that, the angels see it, but they can't do anything about it because of our free will. So that's really a healer's job. I'm not actually healing anyone, you know, like in the movies. I'm just switchboard operator. Okay, next thing, you know, connect this call over here. Do this, please. Do this. Yeah.
And it's all invisible. I mean, we're talking about.
To some people, yes. Some people can see it, yes.
Some can literally see it. That's amazing.
Some can feel it. Some can hear it. Those are all different gifts that you're talking about.
So I challenge everybody to maintain an open mind and stay present in this conversation because I believe in we are all sources of energy. You know, I believe that we transfer energy. You know, I need to do more research around the inherited and some of the other things. And obviously, you know, my understanding of it is you know, learning from you as we talk and the research that I do. So do you help people that are you know, parents that have kids that are struggling, or relationships a partner might be. So how do people come to reach you, and how does that happen? 'Cause people are crazy all the time, and you probably
Well, I'm glad you mentioned about children because I've had quite a few parents come with their adult children. And
Mhm.
by the time people come to me, a lot of times their case is very extreme. I've worked with quite a few young adults, I'm talking about in their 20s and 30s, who people think they're on the spectrum or they think they have some kind of mental illness and they're really just possessed. And I don't mean that in a light way. I
Yeah,
mean, they're under attack, they're doing very dangerous things, negative things. They're being put into jail. They are using drugs. A lot of them are using drugs. They're addicted to things like pornography because they can't control. They're being egged on again they're being manipulated by these outside forces, and people are labeling them. Oh, she can't sit still. Oh, she won't do right, or he won't hold down a job or whatever.
yeah.
And really, the person is doing the best that they can, but they're really being manipulated.
So they're probably like in that time when they're actually in the middle of all that. I mean, I had this image of the child just being hopeless, kind of watching their life in front of them.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It has happened to my own child, unfortunately, before I understood what was going on. And she said, Mommy, there's nothing I can do. They make me say bad words. They make me do this. They make me do that. And before I was able to protect her and free her from their influence, that is what was happening.
Yeah.
And I knew my child, I knew that she didn't act like this. And she would slip, she would just switch back
Mhm.
and forth like Jekyll and Hyde,
Yeah.
and it would be like, where's my child?
Yeah.
And I couldn't punish her, just knowing that wasn't her,
Mhm.
her physically, but that wasn't something she would have done.
Yeah. So let me ask you something. And this is kind of like for parents that are. What can you say to those parents that are like at wits end?
Yeah.
They're not in touch with what we're talking about. They think it's some just chosen behaviors from their child,
Mm-hmm.
and some of that's denial. I mean, they really don't want to see their child as being a problem or having a problem. It's hard for.
Right.
What do you say to that person?
I would say well, first of all, open your mind up to the possibility that maybe your child is doing something that's destructive. First of all, if they're in denial, and then think about you want to help them as soon as possible because the older they get, the more they are responsible for their own behaviors.
Mm,
And like I said, I come across a lot of parents of adult children, in their 30s, who, of course, they're wanting to become independent and, move out, move along,
yeah, yeah,
and they can't. But when they're 7 years old, it's not as much of an emergency to them because maybe they are already expecting to take care of this child. They think it's a behavior issue, things like that. So if you've done the things, you've had the child tested, you've gone to the pediatrician, you've worked with the school, and still the child is having these issues, and just in your gut, or maybe not in your gut, you feel like something is off, consider maybe there's a spiritual reason,
mm,
not just behavior, or it's not just, oh, they have a food allergy or whatever. If
yeah,
you try all those things, maybe there's another reason. Don't give up because this child was given to you to care for, and they need you to figure out whatever's going on. And here's another option that maybe you didn't know about.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Is there anything that for people that will hear the recording or listening in that like a little tip or something that they can kind of test the theory
Uh-huh.
around?
Okay. Yeah. So for anyone, this is not just for children, but for anyone, if you're concerned that someone or even yourself is being affected by, let's say, supernatural forces, let's just leave it at supernatural.
Okay.
It's not going to be something that is all the time. It's not going to be even. There are mental illnesses and things out there, and I encourage you to, of course, get those things checked out. But a lot of times, when physicians can't pinpoint something, they may throw a prescription at it, or they may just give it a diagnosis, and this is it. I'm just challenging you to take the next step to see other options. Do
Yeah.
some research. If this is outside of your beliefs or outside of what you're comfortable with, at least do some research. See some testimonials from other people who have had some results and just think about it. You know, if it's too much of a step, think about it. Think about what you have to lose
Yeah.
if you don't get your child independent and healthy.
Yeah.
And whatever they're going through, you don't want them to be miserable, and then it's probably making you miserable too. you
Yeah,
know
everybody's in that state where it's
yeah,
kind of chaos. But I love that you talk about being open minded and sometimes I think parents should also you know look, nobody likes to look like they're crazy, right?
okay, embarrassing.
So,
Embarrassing.
but like you said, what's the risk?
What do you have to lose? Yeah, what
You
do you
got
have to lose?
you
Yeah,
know
and if you're just getting information, there's nothing to lose. And if your child is out of control, or yourself or your spouse or whoever is out of control, it can only get better. If you check into it. And I told you I was skeptical, but I wasn't sleeping. So
yeah,
I had to find a solution, and I took a chance. Everybody has their own intuition, and that's what I'm going to leave it at for
mm,
people to think about. You have your own intuition. If you felt a chill or you felt a knot in your throat when you heard me say, try something different, you might need to get some more information. If you just are like, I don't know, that's not me, then it probably isn't for you. But when it's time for you to get some information, you get it.
yeah,
You get it if you're open to it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you had reasons, sleeping your child, and even then though, how you just didn't automatically, or did you automatically say, "Man, this is what's going on"? You know?
Um, when the I can't even say it sometimes. I'm like, psychic, oh my gosh. When the psychic told me what was waking me up, that is what got my attention. She told me a man died outside of my house in a car accident before our complex, our home and everything was built.
Mhm.
He died in an accident suddenly, and he was just trying to figure out why everybody was ignoring him. He didn't know he was dead.
Mhm.
So he had been waking me up because he could tell that I could, hear from him, speak to him, or whatever, even though I didn't know how. He knew I had the ability. So, once I realized I can help people with this, I got interested in learning more. And of course, I wanted to get back to sleep. That was my main purpose. That's what motivated me to talk to her. But
Yeah,
then
yeah,
I got excited. I was very scared as well because of how I was raised. But I just came to find out they were people just like us. They just don't have their body anymore.
yeah,
And they need things too. They're looking for their spouse. They don't know what happened to them, or they're scared because they don't know what's going on to them. They need more information. But it was just my intuition. It was like, you know what? I don't know what this lady's talking about. But first of all, I want this man to stop waking me up. And then also, why did God give me this ability?
mm,
What is it for? I'm at the age, I feel like people 40 and above, we start to feel like we want to be of service.
yeah,
Well,
yes,
young people, maybe I say young people, I'm still young, but you know what I mean.
yeah. I'm still young too, so I'll definitely know what you mean.
People in their 20s, they be looking for something else. But I
Hmm.
feel like people 40 to 60, we want to be of service to the
Yeah,
planet, to other people. And that's where I was. And I thought, how can I help people? This is a gift that I have. I didn't feel like a gift when I couldn't sleep.
Right.
But once I got that together, I thought, there are other people being awakened. There are other people who want to be of service too. And that's what I did. I figured out how to do it myself. And then I thought, I'm going to help other people, first of all, get back to sleep.
Yeah.
And then how to be of service. Yeah.
I love the fact that, it's the mission for all of us. I believe this is to be of service to someone or someone's, whatever that might be. And we fight that calling, we ignore that calling, and then, we live a life that's unfulfilled.
Yeah.
And so now, so you're in this, I'm going to go back to this because I'm just kind of curious, right? So
Sure.
how did your husband, when you were going through this, because you see, I mean,
well, the good thing is my husband is from West Africa.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of acceptance.
Yes.
Spirits, not necessarily going towards them or anything like that,
Yeah,
but belief. The belief is there and the respect is there.
Yeah.
So, it was kind of like, you don't have to go there, but I do know what that is. You know what I mean? It was kind of like that. And he keeps it at arm's length still, which is his choice. It's not a problem. But I stepped into it to figure out how to help myself, first of all, and then my daughter. But then it was like, other people need help with this. This is not an odd thing. This is happening lots of places.
Yeah.
And in fact, I've created a free gift for people around it because there's no reason to be awake. Necessarily, if you're healthy, you shouldn't wake up.
No, I get it. And I told you, I may have told you before when we first started talking about this, that there were times that I would wake up every night at the same time.
Yeah.
And there were times I would get up and it would be at peace, and it would just be like in that time when I felt different about what was going on, and so I appreciate the possibilities, the realities of what we're talking about, and the gifts that we have that, are in spaces that a lot of people would ignore. I mean, you had some real reasons, but you could have got some sleeping pills.
Right. Right. Well, I think I'm a little nosy too, so I wanted to know what was going on.
Yeah. Thank goodness you are. Thank goodness you were, right? Because you're helping people with that.
Right.
And what to me means that there are people that realize that what you're saying is a reality.
Right.
And I've always been of the opinion that, listen, you don't have to ever follow the rules just because somebody else made them. Right?
I am very much in agreement with that. Because, at least, let there be multiple rules. Why does it have to be one way?
One way, exactly. Yeah.
There are some things I think are universal, but it's not too many. It's not too many. Yeah.
Right. So it takes, in my opinion, I applaud you for the courage to stand in your truth when, they make movies of Ghostbusters and they make it's all the humor and the shows we have, right? And so the images and the impressions that people have are closed-minded and fixed.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to say this in passing, but you have to think, what is the motivation for scaring people away from the truth? Why are they scaring people away, maligning things that could be neutral or positive? What's the purpose? What do you have to hide? I'm talking about these movie makers, Hollywood newscasters, whoever is making spiritual things look bad. What is their purpose? Are you trying to keep people from using their abilities? Are you trying to keep people from being independent and thinking independently on their own? Are you trying to motivate them to purchase something instead of using their own brain? Like what exactly are you doing? I could go way off on that, but yes, that's what I think of.
Well, yeah, I can join you. I just got to drop one little joint in there too. That, put some medicine on it. let's
Yeah.
just put medicine on it, right? And that'll do that. That'll solve the problem.
Yeah.
It's not the answer. You know, there's more than one way and more than one being, I believe, in this place. So,
Right.
Charmaine, this has been really enlightening, and I could really, I mean, we could just spin on to some other subjects. As we kind of wind down, I want you to kind of think about what we've shared here today, and then kind of put a summary around how you want this conversation to close, and how you want these people to walk away from hearing you and get from it.
Yeah, thank you. I would say if people don't remember anything else that I've said, I want them to do two things. One, I would like for them to be open-minded about the spiritual world. If you're not already open-minded, consider that there is something outside of medicine, something outside of the physical world, something that you may not be able to see or hear or taste, or sense with your senses that's affecting you and your family, and that you need protection from it. That's the second piece. You need protection um, because it's like bacteria. Everything is antibacterial now. If you look, they're even spraying the fruit with antibacterial and antibiotics. Our bodies have built-in protection systems, and we're not using them because they have sterilized our environment. That has weakened us. How do I liken that to the spiritual world? It's the same thing. We are sterilized by the medical community, by these different communities that promise to take care of us until we're stage 4, and then there's nothing they can do. But what if you had protected yourself in the beginning and work with the doctor? If I break my leg, that's the first place I'm going.
That's right.
Okay? But for prevention, right, and maintenance, maybe there are some other options that you want to consider, especially if you are not getting the results that you want. Maybe you just need another tool in your arsenal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, I'm just, I'm taking notes, and as you were talking, and the protection, we're not protected. I said I was going to close this out. I can see there's so many questions around how the protection process.
I have great news for you. Your body has an inborn protection system. But just like you've been going to the dentist since you had teeth, you were supposed to be going to a healer to get that built up. And it's just like your college degree. Once it's built up, it's yours forevermore. But you got to do the build up. You got to get that taken care of. That is what I found is missing. A lot of times people have the best intentions, but you're walking around with a raincoat with holes in it. Okay? You can use the very best umbrella. You can use, the very best, most beautiful raincoat. But if they're full of holes, wasting time. Yeah.
I like that. I mean, you're not getting completely wet, but you're going to be damp. You're going to be infected by whatever that is that's coming through.
That's right. That's right. For some people, it just drizzles a little bit.
Yeah.
Some people's life is a downpour, it's a hurricane.
Yeah.
And so the holes are like you don't even have a coat on. It just really depends.
I love that.
Yeah.
So I think we have your contact information in the chat for those that are interested in having more of a conversation. And you also mentioned the free gift. They have access to that in the chat as well. Man. I'm grateful to have an open mind, and I'm grateful for people like yourself that I don't think our meeting was an accident. And I can see why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And man, well, thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's great. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So people, I encourage you to make sure you take advantage of the free gift when you hear this. And more importantly, go back and replay this message,
Mm-hmm.
right? And,
Yeah.
and know that there is an answer out there if you're looking for
That's right. That's right. Listen to your intuition. Mm-hmm.
your intuition.
Yeah.
Hey, Charmaine, I'm done. Thank you so much.
Thank you as well. Great.
Yeah, have a great day, and we'll talk again soon.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right.
Man, I got to tell you, listen, as she said, and as I wrap this thing up, keep an open mind and take your time through this conversation. And I want to just say this to you. What if what she's saying has some merit to it? Don't wait. If your children are struggling, if you're struggling and your partner's struggling, don't wait. Take advantage of the free gift, man. Right? I mean, what do you got to lose? What do you got to gain by doing something different? Right? Our world is shifting. We are realizing there are things that we didn't know about that we should know about, and this is one of them. So, man, hit the link. It's in the chat. If you need more information and you don't have success, please reach out to me. And remember this as I say goodbye to you, that we have a responsibility as human beings to not just walk by things that may feel different, seem different, maybe even smell different, because we just don't want to take the time to learn something new. Close-minded. Open your mind, open your spirit, and let's get healthy without the medicine. Let's get healthy without someone telling you what to do. Hook up with my friend Charmaine and take a new journey to what I believe is something that can help you. I know I have someone in mind myself to talk to her about. So you guys have a great day. Share and subscribe to this. Reach out to my friend. You know, if this message resonated, drop in some comments, please, please, please. And for those of you who have been trying to get a hold of me, my information should be in the chat as well. You guys have a fantastic day, and we'll see you on the next episode. No more stinking thinking, no matter what. Harness the spiritual gifts, unleash your potential, and let's change the world. Take care, guys.